Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse and yet another breakdown. As today, we will be breaking down and giving our initial thoughts on the second episode of Season 2 of The Last of Us, which is obviously based on the video games. Specifically, this season being based on the second game, as the first season was entirely based on the first game, of course. The title of this episode being Through the Valley. Now, the title of the episode in itself is a reference to the games, as Ashley Johnson, the voice actor of Ellie in the games, did a cover of the original Through the Valley song by Shawn James specifically for the game. Anyways though, this episode actually begins with Abby clearly in a dream, as she is about to walk into the room where her father was killed by Joel. Another version of herself warns her not to go inside of the room because her father is dead in there. But she walks in anyways, which is where she wakes up from the said dream. In the cabin with the rest of her group being Manny, Mel, Owen, and Nora, as they all see Jackson for the first time, at least in sunlight. Clearly, it is much different and bigger than they originally had thought, which makes everything much more difficult when looking for Joel. Abby tries to suggest capturing a patrol from Jackson and making them talk, but Owen and Mel have counterpoints to that, or just blatantly are against that, because they are only there for Joel and do not need to hurt anybody else. Abby ends up going out on lookout in the meantime, however. We do also hear that Owen's plan is to actually convince Abby to just leave. We then cut to Jackson as Jesse wakes Ellie up so that they can head out on patrol themselves. He jokes around with her regarding the whole Dina thing that happened at the dance last night, considering that he is Dina's ex, but he says he does not care. But as the two walk around Jackson to get to their horses for their patrol, Jesse asks Ellie how her and Joel are doing. Or Morley is just talking about the two of them and their relationship, which kind of sets Ellie off, as she says that their relationship is complicated because, of course, she is mad at him for what happened in Salt Lake, but she does give the hint that they worked things out. Now, people might assume that they cut out their porch conversation that happens after the whole event that happened in the previous episode, but I guarantee that it will just end up being a flashback scene, as it sort of was in the game, as they waited until the end parts of the game to actually show that conversation. Anyways though, Ellie wonders where Joel is because she actually wants to go on patrol with him today. But Jesse says that he already left to go on patrol with Dina because he did not want to wake Ellie up. Now this is actually a massive change from the game, as Joel and Tommy actually went out on patrol together, and Dina and Ellie went out on patrol together. So now it's a whole different mix-up in the show. This change is likely because they also changed Tommy's story up a bit in this episode, giving him a whole lot of responsibility in Jackson. This is likely because they also gave him a son in the show, which is why he may have stayed instead of gone out. But who really knows where this is all going to head with these changes in mind? And that sort of brings us back into the actual episode, as Tommy is addressing everyone in Jackson about getting prepared for a possible horde to attack the town. They do say it's just a drill, but a lot has been hinting towards the infected getting closer and closer to their settlement. While here, Maria brings Ellie over to Seth, where he apologizes to her for what he said and what he did at the event last night. While Ellie and Jesse head out and go on patrol, we do get two quick little scenes, one of Abby out on lookout as she does notice some of Jackson's patrol down below the mountain. and another of Tommy and the rest of Jackson preparing the defenses for the inevitable attack as the storm gets worse, which causes Tommy to order all of the patrols back to Jackson as soon as possible. But with the storm picking up, it's only going to mess with their radio signals. However, Jesse and Ellie do hear the radio briefly, and instead of going back to Jackson, they decide to stake it out in an old gas station. And it turns out that this gas station used to belong to Eugene, a former Firefly, the man Joel shot, and who his therapist was married to. Just like in the game, he used this spot to grow nothing but weed. Now, having Jesse and Ellie do their patrol together and stop here at this specific location means that they did cut out Ellie and Dina's scenes from the games that happened here. Now, they could add it sometime down the line as Ellie did take a huge bag of weed, but the importance of having Dina and Ellie's scenes here before what happens to Joel does kind of help with a lot of the emotion that comes with it, as we sort of saw Ellie go from the happiest that she has been right into her being the most emotional, angry, and sad that she has been. Cutting back to Abby as she tries to head down the mountain by climbing down the snow, but she just ends up falling and sliding straight down instead, right into a big frozen pile of infected. Similar to what was mentioned back in Jackson earlier, and one of the big reasons as to why they are running drills for a possible horde attack in the first place. Clearly, Abby just landing on these infected and walking over them wakes the rest of them up that are hiding beneath the snow and the other bodies, as they all rise up and run right after her. She makes a run for it and gets inside a walled area only to be pushed against the wall once the infected get to the fences and start knocking it over right on top of her. Practically identical to the game scene of this. She crawls out of the fenced area with a single infected about to feast on her, but none other than Joel saves her life and takes her in from here. As the two go inside and get the doors locked up, Abby comes to a realization that this man that just saved her and who she just randomly encountered is Joel, the very man that she is after, as she hears Dina calling his name. Now, in the game, she finds out he was Joel after being saved because Tommy introduced himself and his brother to her. Abby tries to suggest bringing the two to the cabin where her group is also staying, as the infected try to get inside and get at them. The storm is picking up and Jackson is farther away, so they need some way to stray the infected off of them. So the lodge seems to be their best bet. At least, that is what they think initially. We then cut back to the gas station as Ellie messes around with the stuff that Eugene had growing and that he had made, including the gas mask bong, and yes, this thing is also in the game. Before they can hold up here any longer, the radio signal comes through that Joel and Dina are the only patrols that have not responded. So Ellie and Jesse leave immediately and separate to go out and look for them. While all of this is happening, another one of the pipes in Jackson is broken and messed with. And this pipe also has the cordyceps in it. Ultimately, because the fungus can communicate underground and practically send signals, this ends up signaling the entire horde and more underground infected straight to Jackson and off of the backs of Joel, Abby, and Dina, who then arrive at the cabin shortly after. At first, Abby and her group seem extremely welcoming and helpful to the two, but as soon as Abby reveals Joel's identity to everyone in the room, their plan unfolds. Manny holds Dina at gunpoint until Mel gives her a shot that puts her to sleep. Then Abby starts to give her little speech or monologue after Joel admitted that the last time that he saw fireflies was in Salt Lake. She shoots his kneecap tap out with a shotgun right after he admits it, just like the game. She then continues this whole little speech that she must have rehearsed, just like Joel suggested, in the game. Abby tells Joel that one doctor that he shot and killed at the hospital was her father, and she was only 19 years old when she found him like that. This is practically a mirror of what Ellie is about to experience herself at 19 years old. Abby does also mention how she has joined a militia known as the WLF. And she has been with them and training with them for 5 years. Specifically for Joel. At least, that is what it was all for in the game, which is why she was so jacked there. Her militia leader is also mentioned, and that is the character of Isaac that we of course will be seeing later on this season. Joel tells Abby to just shut up and get it over with already. But as she says after picking out a golf club, he does not get to rush this, as she begins the beating and practically begins the torture. Meanwhile, back at Jackson as the horde attacks the town, Tommy and the rest of the community hold their ground, using exploding barrels and spraying down their rifles. But once the infected get a massive bloater on their side, they break down the walls and start storming the town. Tommy takes a flamethrower and then begins to distract the bloater away from Maria, which brings him to a shut-off part of the town where he is stuck with the bloater all alone. He uses every last bit of the flamethrower and it seems like the bloater has him. But in the end, it just falls over and dies. This whole thing just reminded me of the game so much. When facing off with the bloaters, you just have to unload all of your ammo, sometimes even your grenades or Molotovs, to make sure that it does not touch you, because those things are a one-hit kill type of enemy. But especially in the no return mode, when you get that lucky flamethrower by, you sometimes just run out of all of its ammo when fighting one of the bloater bosses. Anyways though, after Tommy beats the bloater and Maria sets all of the dogs free, the infected start losing numbers pretty fast, although it does not come without the losses of people from Jackson as well. After following the tracks back to the cabin, Ellie finds Joel being beaten by Abby and tries to do something about it, but she is quickly just taken down. But not after giving Manny a mark that will likely stick with him forever. Now, the show's version of Manny seems to have also been mixed in with the character of Jordan from the game as well, as he was the one who got the scar from Ellie in the game, and he was the one who was so keen on just killing her too at the cabin, and seeing Manny do this means that Jordan probably won't be a character, and Manny will take on some of Jordan's storylines. Although I am really hoping that Tommy gets to Manny and not Ellie, if you know what I'm talking about. Since Ellie showed up, Owen makes Abby just get it over with, because this is all just so brutal. We can even see Mel crying in the corner of the room while all of this is happening. A character from Abby's group who clearly does have a lot of sympathy, and this shows in the game as well, as she saved a character known as Yara, and she wasn't always so keen on violence. Instead of taking a final blow with the golf club to the head, Abby actually stabs Joel with the broken club. Another difference from the game. Now, as I said before, most of the dialogue during the sequence is pretty much the same. They did add some for Abby, but it's all still depressing and extremely emotional, especially from Ellie. After finishing the job, Abby's group all leave. Manny kicks Ellie and then walks over to Joel's body, insulting him one last time, just as he did in the game. Although in the game, he took it a step further and spit on Joel's body. Ellie starts crawling over to Joel, just bawling. like most of the audience likely was watching this whole sequence. She takes the golf club out and just hugs his body as the two lay there. Now, the writers and directors actually said that Ellie laid there because she was expecting to die there too, and she wanted to be with Joel in death. Anyways though, this scene is pretty similar to Simba and Mufasa from The Lion King, but also pretty similar to some of the concept art from the video game that we did not actually see play out in the actual game. As Abby's group begins their journey back to Seattle, we can see Jesse on his horse arriving to the cabin in the background. Once Jackson is rid of the infected, they come out on top, but severely damaged and with a lot of casualties. Tommy and Maria embrace each other, both clearly emotional after everything that has happened in their town. And it's only going to get worse once the patrols get back. And that is what we see next as Jesse, Dina, and Ellie head back to Jackson on horseback, dragging Joel's body in a body bag back down the mountain and back to the town. And that is where the episode ends off. And overall, in my opinion, I thought that this was an absolutely incredible episode. It's hard to not always mention how every scene is so similar to the games because they truly are so alike in most aspects. However, in this episode, they actually changed a few things when it came to the overall story. As someone who played both of the games, I am welcome to change as it is just an adaptation, and not every adaptation is going to be a one-to-one scale. However, as long as these changes do not fully ruin certain arcs that happened in the original. So we will see where these changes end up going and how they affect everything else that is going to happen in the future. And again, being someone who played the games, I knew what was going to happen, but man, did they execute it so well. And just as emotional as it was in the game. It's almost torture to see Joel have to go out like that 2 times now. But that does not change the fact that this episode was some great television. The action was incredible, the dialogue was good, but most of all, that building of tension in all aspects of the story was absolutely phenomenal. I know there is a lot of back and forth and controversy regarding casting choices for some of the fan base, but putting that all aside, I do think that everyone gave an incredible performance in this episode, especially with all of the emotion. I was worried about Tommy not being there with Joel, but giving him that responsibility at Jackson also can add to the story, but I will say that I will be pretty upset if they don't end up sending Tommy to Seattle after everything because of these story changes. Tommy is actually my favorite character from the game, and I absolutely loved the Seattle arc for his character, even if we only got to see so little of it. Now, I may have some questions and some concerns about certain changes, but I still love this episode, and I seriously think I would give this an 8.5 or 9 out of 10. But yeah, that about does it for this episode, from me at least. But of course, I would like to hear your thoughts on it as well, so make sure to leave them down below. Anyways though, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed our breakdown and review on this episode, feel free to give it a like. And with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.